What's up, geeks? My name is Kev. This is the Geekcentric podcast, and today we're coming at you like a tomahawk on a rope for our spoiler-free review of Prey. If it bleeds, we can kill it. The movie will be crash landing on Hulu and Disney Plus on August 5th, but we're here with our early thoughts to let you know if this movie is worth hunting down or if you should cover yourself in mud and avoid it altogether. A huge thanks to Disney Plus Canada for shooting this one over to us early. Before we get started, if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of TV, movies, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Of course, I could never give you all the blood-dripping details of this movie on my own. Joining me on the program are a couple of fierce podcast warriors who won't be made to look like suckers. I love working with these two gents because they are some good-looking motherfuckers. JLaw, Nate, how we doing, gentlemen? And are we ready to head back to colonial times and try to survive against a deadly alien hunter?
Get to the chopper!
I am ready.
Get to the chopper. Is that one of the lines? Is that that's one of the ones from the movie?
That's a classic Arnie. Yep.
Is that from Predator?
You got one of them.
Yeah.
That's a Predator. Yep. That's where it's from, man.
Okay, I know more than I thought I did. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Oh, you totally looked it up online. Don't even lie.
I swear, dude. I swear. I was gonna say if it bleeds, we can kill it. Like, but you already stole that line, Kevin. So you're good.
I did. I apologize. I had to slip it in there somewhere. But as I mentioned off the top here, today we are here to discuss 20th Century Studios' Prey. Have a spoiler-free discussion about the newest entry in the Predator franchise. This is an all-new action thriller set in the Comanche Nation 300 years ago. It's the story of a young woman, Naru, a fierce and highly skilled warrior who has been raised in the shadow of some of the most legendary hunters who roam the Great Plains. So, when danger threatens her camp, she sets out to protect her people. The prey she stalks and ultimately confronts turns out to be a highly evolved alien predator with a technically advanced arsenal, resulting in a vicious and terrifying showdown between the two adversaries. Prey is directed by Dan Trachtenberg and written by Patrick Asen. The film features a cast comprised almost entirely of Native and First Nations talent, including Amber Midthunder, Dakota Beavers, Stormy Kipp, Michelle Thrush, Julian Black Antelope, and Dane DeLiegro as the Predator. And so I thought before we got started with our thoughts on the movie, it would be good to sort of establish our history or familiarity with the Predator franchise. Of course, this is the 7th entry into the film franchise, even though if you were to watch it chronologically, it would be the first. But in terms of release, so you had 1987's Predator, 1990's Predator 2, 2004's Alien vs. Predator, 2007's AVP. Then you skip ahead a little bit to 2010's Predators, and finally 2018's Shane Black's The Predator. And so, Justin, I'll ask you first. How many of those 6 films had you seen before watching Prey?
Well, I actually saw the original two, so 1987 and the 1990, which were classics. I think I saw Alien vs. Predator, the first one. I think I saw that with you actually when we were much younger. You know, I wouldn't call myself a huge Predator fan. I've always found it interesting. I thought it was just an interesting reaction in the early 80s to come out with this sort of sci-fi slasher-esque combo with aliens, sort of creature horror, which definitely had like a slasher vibe to it. So I thought of it always as kind of a mirror to the horror genre, but with a lot more sci-fi infused into it. That being said, this didn't disappoint.
Nice, and we will definitely get into why you think it succeeded in that manner. Nate, how about yourself? How familiar with the dreadlocked hunter are you?
I honestly, I've seen the poster for Alien vs. Predator. That's about it. I've not watched any of the Predator films. I know of the character. I think I know of the character from things like Family Guy or like The Simpsons or just different iterations of parodies of the character. So getting into this and kind of getting into this with fresh eyes was really cool, and it's made me want to kind of go in and see what people suggest as the better of the Predator franchise, because I've heard that not all of them are phenomenal. So I would, so I definitely kind of, if anything, I think this is a great stepping off point for people who might, want to get into the franchise, but might not be, familiar with it. So I think this is a great way to kind of, this got me hyped and ready to watch more of this creature. So yeah, man, I enjoyed it.
Awesome. And you're so right that if you hadn't seen or haven't seen any of the Predator films, this is a perfect place to start because, like I mentioned, this takes place before any of the previous 6 movies. So you could almost watch this, and then whether you wanted to watch the next 6 or based on recommendations from people, go and watch 2 or 3 of them. You could do it in chronological order. And I mean, the nice thing about this is if you're new to the franchise, it establishes what the character is and what it's all about pretty simply without needing to know any of the backstory. Whereas if you're somebody like myself who's seen them all, really, really enjoys them, it perfectly follows the mythology that's been created for the character. And so the Predator's motivations are really easily understood and they make sense for somebody like myself who's seen them all. I'm a big Predator guy. I love the sort of canon that they've built up of the character, and even the movies such as the Alien versus Predator movies that aren't very good at all, they still do a cool job of establishing what the character's about and furthering the sort of lore and legend of the character. So I mean, I'm not trying to refer to the Predator as a singular character because there are lots of them, but the species of the Predator again is really it's fleshed out really nicely over the 40 plus years of films that they've done so far. So again, we're here to talk about Prey. So gents, let's dive right in. What worked about the film?
I think you kind of, even this discussion, the three of us kind of talking about this and seeing your passion, Kevin, for the franchise and seeing how happy you are with the representation of the Yautja. I'm looking it up as the name of the species.
Thank you. See, you already know more than me.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, I think this movie, from what I understand and from what I'm hearing from you, is encapsulating a lot of what people who are big fans of the franchise love. But I think more importantly, its best aspect is capturing the Comanche nations and capturing the culture. And I think that was the first thing that really stuck out to me was we get to hear them speak in Comanche at certain points in the film. I think it's really cool how they're going to be offering it available in a full Comanche dialogue track. The only thing I will say, I kind of wish that it was the other way around. I kind of wish they had like a dubbed English version. Because I don't think the mouths will match up because I don't think they reshot all the scenes with different mouths. So I really wish it was the other way around, but it was just so cool to see the extent at which they really, really paid attention to all the details, and they brought on people that are aware of that specific culture and consulted them. So I think it was really cool, and I think it's important how much attention they paid to not only, again, the Predator itself and that origin story, but also for the culture it represented.
Yeah, I think the representation is a huge part of the success of this movie, and taking what seemingly seems like a futuristic character like the Predator and putting him 300 years in the past of our history and juxtaposing him with indigenous culture to understand the difference of hunters and warriors and what that looks like. I think that was so smart. It plays into the simplicity of the story and keeping it focused on a core theme to the Predator, and that is the hunt and the sport of it, versus where we see our Comanche Nation represented as hunting for survival. So I think it was really smart for them to take these juxtaposing cultures, if you will, from an alien race to an indigenous race, and really pit them against each other to show the comparisons and the differences between them.
Well, and something I read after watching the movie was that the filmmakers were committed to creating a film that provides an accurate portrayal of the Comanche and brings a level of authenticity that rings true to its indigenous peoples. And I know that producer Jane Myers, who's an acclaimed filmmaker, Sundance Fellow, and member of the Comanche Nation herself, is already known for her attention and dedication to films surrounding the Comanche and Blackfeet nations. And so her passion for honoring the legacies of the native communities is something that she really does strive for in her filmmaking. And I could really see that throughout the film, not just with, the casting and their performances, but also just the settings and events of the film. It was so cool to see this advanced species brought even further back into the evolution and technological development of the human race, and see how not only the human characters but the alien character itself adapted to those situations. And so did that work for you guys as well? Did you get that authentic feel from the sets and the action itself? Felt very authentic to that time period.
Surrounding it in nature really helped to elevate the story. And also the look of this predator felt very primal. It felt very not necessarily as futuristic as what we would have seen in the 1987 or even later in the 2018. But this predator felt very in the past. It didn't seem or look to be as advanced as what we would see later. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that they kind of pulled back on the Predator's experience and the Predator's technology to show us a Predator from the past.
I did, but yeah, just to call that out, I absolutely, that was one of the visual things that I loved about the movie. I think it's absolutely stunning, sprawling vistas. We get mountainscapes, giant, like big golden fields. Like it's a beautiful movie while staying so simple and so focused at the same time. It doesn't spend too much time, like walking slowly through these environments, but we do get some brief moments of sort of levity for Naru, where we get to see her and these giant landscapes. And I thought it was I was like, I want to be watching this in a theater so bad. I wish this was in a theater, because I would have loved to have seen it on the big screen. But to the point of the Predator, just seeing not only, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong because I've not seen the movies, but is it a thing that he does, like seeing him adapt to the fighting styles, seeing him adapt to the weaponry used against him, and then sort of mirroring that was so cool throughout the movie. And you're right, Justin, he does take on more of a
primitive.
He primitive sort of style to him as well, because I think that's what he's seeing. He's seeing like, okay, who are the number one warriors on this planet that I've arrived on, and how can I intimidate them the way that they would be intimidated? I think it was such a unique touch. I don't know if they've done that in the other Predator movies, but it was really creative, and I really liked it. Added so much more to that character.
I mean, they've certainly touched on. I mean, that's kind of the whole basis of the character is that they live for the hunt, but they have never, in my experience, shown it quite like that. I mean, the growing scale of this Predator's sort of conquests, throughout the movie, it's such a cool idea. And it's such a great way to not only show us as the audience, but let our main character, Naru, sort of understand what she's up against at the same time. And so, speaking of Naru, I thought the performance in this performances in this movie, in particular from Amber Midthunder, and then also from Dakota Beavers, I thought the performances were terrific. Their relationship was great. There was a lot more heart and humor than I think I was expecting to get out of this.
Yeah, no, that's very accurate. I think Amber Midthunder, she committed to the role of protagonist and hero. She leaned into those action scenes. She did what was asked of her, and she did it flawlessly. There is some great moments in this movie where she really shines in those actions, but then she really does also shine in those quiet, more emotional moments where she is kind of, with her own thoughts. Her story seems so relevant for today, given the fact that we are talking about a story in the past, to see a woman who doesn't want to necessarily be oppressed or held down by what others expect of her, but wanting to go her own way. And there's actually a really beautiful shot that very much captures that. I feel like having her thrive to be the hunter, to be the one that bests the predator. I think that was so fitting given her, emotional self-discovery journey that she goes on in this movie. It fit really well, and it really did give you a satisfying payoff.
And I'm gonna do something that I rarely do on this podcast, is I'm gonna throw some shade at Star Wars right now, and actually just sort of, when we look at a female protagonist who is our lead character, we look at someone like Rey, and how I think it's a big point of contention for the fandom of how quickly she gets those force powers, how quickly she's a badass, and how quickly she's just a perfect, phenomenal Jedi. And we don't get to see too much of her struggles. I think, Amber Midthunder was so captivating in this movie. I love her as Carrie in Legion. I think she just got such a captivating look. Her eyes, there's a reason that they're like the main poster for this movie, because they're just absolutely, you get lost in them. But I think the seeing her, how her character was written, was so realistic. We get to see her stumble over and over and over and over again in this movie, and she's not instantly a badass. She's not an Arnold Schwarzenegger superhero, right? She's learning, and I love that about the character for her. I love how it's just so much more realistic. And it really made me want to root for her even more, getting to see her struggle through some of the things she struggles with, because she's going up against a freaking alien master race thing. It makes sense that she's not just going to be able to, be so adept at taking this thing down.
100%. And I think the movie does such a good job of establishing this character that you care about her. You're genuinely concerned for her, especially as the film simultaneously builds up this Predator warrior as an absolute force to be reckoned with, which kind of brings me to my second favorite aspect of the film, which was the action. I think a lot of the Predator films of the past have struggled to find a balance between good action, an appropriate level of gore, and making that all meaningful. Obviously, the original is the standard to which they're all held, and that movie had terrific 80s style action with great R-rated 80s style gore. Then you got into Predator 2, which really capitalized on the gore, but the action didn't live up to the standards necessary to facilitate that gore. And then what really hurt the Alien versus Predator movies was that they didn't go for an R rating, I guess, to increase theatrical audience size. And if you're not seeing these predators killing and ripping and maiming, what is the point, really? And so I thought this had the right level of violence, the right level of gore, and then just from one shot badassery to just really creative kills and everything, and an abundance of them. That was the best part. You got so many. I just thought the action was top notch. Yeah,
the action was top notch, and it really does own the action thriller genre in its best representation of how the action is treated, like you're saying, Kevin. The gore wasn't over the top, but it was well handled. There's this great one-take action sequence that happens that is mesmerizing, and I'm just glad that they were able to breathe so much different type of action into this movie that it didn't feel cookie cutter or shoved in for the purpose. Because I think you're right, Kevin. I think the strength of the first one is again very much the strength of this one, which is the simplicity of the story and who it's focused on. And here it is very much the simplicity of the hunt, very much like it was in the first one. So throughout the rest of the franchise, it did kind of struggle on finding its footing. How to tell that story without forcing it to just feel like it needs to evolve. It needs to get bigger. It needs to get bigger and be bogged down by this idea of trying to make the next one always bigger, where, this one just embraces the simplicity and owns the best parts, like the action and the intensity that the action can give in moments.
But I love that the action is still brought forth through the Predator's arsenal. Granted, we are talking about, I guess, the earliest version of the Predator, of the Yautja, that we might have seen on film. But I think it's kind of cool that he's not just, using the stuff around him. He is using a full arsenal of really cool sci-fi, but also very they're not, it's not all laser weapons. It's not all laser bolts and guns and stuff like that. Like, it's a really visceral and very physical performance by Dane DiLiegro as well, who I just wanted to shout out as like brings the heat. Like, he's terrifying. Like, he's actually terrifying, and especially for a character that for a lot of the times on screen you don't really see, you kind of see. And I liked how they did that too. Like, I guess that is more of a staple of the character. I know he goes invisible a lot, but I think it was cool the moments they chose to show off the character and when they chose to kind of hold back. I thought it was really well done. But yeah, man, I dug the action on this, and I like that it wasn't all like the threat and Naru's experiences weren't all from just the Predator. There's other threats involved, and there's threats even just within the environment that she's in that we get to see highlighted in the movie as well. And I just think it's just really cool that they didn't just focus it solely on the Predator as well, for as great as he was.
100%. I do love that you bring up, that oftentimes the Predator character is invisible, and it always just makes me think how Jean-Claude Van Damme was supposed to play the role in the original film, but didn't like that, he wouldn't be seen for most of the movie, and then even when he was on camera, he was under a mask, and he split the production, but it does take a very talented physical presence to bring this character to life and make it work, especially when so much of the focus is on the character itself. And so, yeah, terrific job there. Nate, you always like to mention music or soundtrack, score. What did you think of it in this movie?
Yeah, I don't. So one of the big things that I'm a huge fan of that I didn't quite get from this movie was a sense of themes. I love character themes in movies, and I think it could have really helped to get a theme, maybe, a Naru theme or a Tabe theme or a Predator theme. And maybe I missed it. Maybe because I'm not familiar with the Predator franchise, maybe I missed some sort of musical influence. But I just didn't feel a ton of theming. I did get, though, I did feel there's a lot of traditional Comanche Nation music instrumentation done, and I think it's there to set the mood. At no point in time did I ever find the music or lack of music distracting, so that was good. I think the vibe was brought by the soundtrack, but I didn't. There was nothing incredibly memorable about it. I think I was just so captivated by Naru and her story that I didn't really pick up on anything too much from the soundtrack.
That's such an interesting point that you bring up, that you have this franchise that dates all the way back to 1987, and I really don't think there is that classic Predator, theme or score that,
because it's all about the like click sound, right? Like,
he's almost his own soundtrack, the character itself. But all those movies from the 80s, they all have that theme that you can all sing, even if you've never seen the movie. And Predator just really isn't that. But so I think it's not so much that the soundtrack didn't work. It's just that it wasn't the focus of the movie itself. Were there elements that didn't work for either of you?
I think the very first thing that I sort of noted, because I like to keep notes when I do these reviews, I did think, as great as the visuals of the Predator were and kept getting, I did think the initial, very first early looks at we get to see the ship in kind of in an invisible version of the ship. We get to sort of see the ship in the sky. I did find that the visuals, and then I think there's like a moment with like a deer running where I just sort of was like, it kind of pulled me out of it. But then they sort of move away from that to a certain degree where it didn't bother me enough at all, because I think they do a great job of sort of pushing more towards the physical and practical elements of the world that Naru's in, and of the forest and what have you. But yeah, there's some instances involving different animals, let's say, where I was just like, I think the CGI could have been stepped up a little bit better, but at the same time, not enough to kind of really pull me out of the experience.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that there was some specific moments, definitely off top at the beginning of this movie that felt very, the graphics felt very, TV, made for TV,
Yes.
if you will. So, I don't have any other issues though with this movie. I think it's flawless in my opinion, other than some minor CGI issues.
Nice. I'd be on the same page. That's where it felt like a made for streaming movie, was those early, really CGI heavy shots. And I think with the story they're telling, they almost had to rely on those shots to establish the Predator in the beginning. And unfortunately, I don't know if the budget was there for that. There's a shot of the semi-transparent Predator using his hands on something, and they just look oversized and goofy, like the actor was wearing big silly gloves, like Mickey hands almost.
Right.
That is where once they are able to shift into that more practical side of things, you wouldn't know that you weren't watching a theater budgeted, action spectacle movie. And that's when it really starts to shine. So yeah. And I think, maybe they know, listen, we only need to rely on it for 5 or 6 shots before we can get to the more practical stuff. Yep. So let's not put our attention there. And if that meant that they did focus on the elements that we've liked about the movie, then I'm fine with that slight sacrifice towards the beginning of the film. It's not often that we get to talk about a reboot or a rebootquel or that nostalgic 80s franchise relaunch or a prequel, anything like that in such a positive light. Like what an accomplishment. I think we've sort of outlined what we felt about the film. I think these are going to be some pretty positive scores. So I think at this point it's time to, you already stole this line, but I'm using it again anyways, get to the chopper and give our final thoughts and scores for the film. Today we'll be doing that on a scale of 1 to 5 blood-soaked skull trophies.
Yeah, I think to echo what we've already been saying, as you said, Kevin, positive things. This movie is awesome. It's simple, yet completely imaginative and fresh, like you were saying, Nate. It's both vicious and gorgeous, and it's an action thriller at its best. It has all the horror qualities of the past Predator films, with a very new, self-contained story that, keeps it focused on the theme of the hunt, and putting this, again, otherwise very futuristic character in a more simple, primitive time only highlights the qualities that the Predator is one who hunts for sport versus the Comanche tribe who hunt to survive. And, we talked about it extensively already, but the representation of the indigenous culture of Comanche Nation and its people, its code, it was so well handled and so authentic, and it is the authenticity of this movie. Very much so, and Amber Midthunder is absolutely outstanding. She is just killer as the hero and protagonist, and she really does lean into all of the qualities of what's asked of her in this role, from the intense action moments to the emotional stuff. I think in many ways this movie is the best parts of the classic horror slasher creature genres that we know from the 80s, that inspired what Predator is and the sci-fi vibes, while keeping it, again, as you were saying, Nate, with director Dan Trachtenberg. I think that this is an excellent example of how you take a franchise that is so lost in its way and immersed in trying to always elevate to the next, and just keep it simple, keep it focused, take it back to the roots of what makes it successful, and tell a very authentic story. And yeah, I think that all just speaks volumes as to why this movie is such a success. So I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5 blood-soaked skull trophies.
Nice.
I like it. That's like elite Predator level there. If you were measuring the kill, that's not some little snake skull. That's a bear skull of a score. Nate, how about yourself?
Yeah, as Justin was just putting there, I think the entire cast, who almost all of them are they're almost all of them are Native American, and of the Comanche Nation. I think it's, again, the commitment to that culture, but also I think, again, the commitment for fans of the Predator franchise, and just being able to balance both while still being respectful to the culture, I think is absolutely phenomenal here. And again, it's, as I was saying, it's a great sort of, I think a lot of filmmakers and a lot of directors and a lot of storytellers should look to this movie to sort of see, right, to how to not only infuse different cultures that need to be represented on screen more, but at the same time be able to respectfully have fun and bring back some older franchises. I think it's just a great representation of that. I think giving us this incredible atmosphere. The way the movie is shot is just so well done, and the camera work, I think, is something we didn't quite highlight. But it's just at no point in time was I ever feeling like it wasn't looking in the right direction. If that makes sense, like it kind of just felt like it flowed so well, and it's again giving us this truly terrifying adversary in what ostensibly is like a David and Goliath-esque sort of tale, and just the right amount of time as well. The movie doesn't overstay its welcome. An hour and 39 minutes is perfect for this. And it honestly, I think Dan Trachtenberg got he got it. Like the first movie that I saw him do was 10 Cloverfield Lane. And again, you have a movie that's a very simple story, female lead who is overcoming a huge obstacle, and in different ways. Obviously, Cloverfield Lane being a very different movie, but still following a similar trajectory for its protagonist. I loved this movie. I really, really enjoyed it. I actually watched it 1.5 times because I was like, before we started this review, I'm like, I'm just going to put it back on. And I was there watching it again, and just watching some of the key scenes and some of the best moments. And I just think, again, I've never watched any of the Predator movies, but this felt like to me that this could either be a great singular adventure and just don't touch it and don't do anything with it, and I'd be okay with it. But I'd honestly, I kind of would also be okay if Dan Trachtenberg and Amber Midthunder got back together to do more of this, whether it be in like some sort of limited series or even a short film or what have you. I think this could be a fantastic stepping off point for the franchise, and I think if you wanted to, you could make this into more than just this movie. But I go back and forth on like whether I want that to happen or not. Before I write the next 4 movies in this franchise, I'm going to give this one 4.5 blood-soaked skull trophies. I really did dig this movie. I thought it ruled.
Some of my favorite reviews are when we come at it at 3 different levels of experience with a given property, and that's certainly what we've got here. And I think it's so exciting that myself, a big fan of the Predator series, I love this movie, and so it's amazing that they were able to find a way to make this kind of story work within that framework. But then all the way to somebody like you, Nate, who's never seen a movie, and you're like, not only did it work, not only did I enjoy the story I'm in, I would even like to see more of this now. I think, man, could this movie have a really positive impact on the franchise that some movies that have been released, even 2018's Predator and then 2010's The Predators, or Predators, I should say, which I loved, they didn't seem to captivate and get people interested in the franchise any more than they already were. This might be that secret, and so that's really exciting. I really, really enjoyed this movie. Again, I think the character specifically of Naru, played by Amber Midthunder, I thought she was so fantastic. It's unbelievable when you can go and play a role that was made famous by Arnold Schwarzenegger 33 years earlier, and bring that same kind of badass energy as the king of 80s action flicks. Like, what a compliment that is to the performance. And then in terms of the Predator itself, just to add to the mythology in the best ways that the sequels have, and also in a more organic way than the worst sequels have, I think this movie's a triumph from start to finish. I was excited for it, but I didn't have the expectation that it was going to work quite as well as it did. I think we've said, countless times already why it worked. So I'll just jump right into my score here. I'm giving it a 4.4 out of 5 blood-soaked skull trophies. Well, there you have it, our spoiler-free review for Prey. The movie will be available on Disney Plus and Hulu on August 5th. Thanks for tuning in wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and leave us 5 stars, or we might just have to collect a few skull trophies of our own. We'd also love to know, are you a fan of the Predator series? Which are your favorites? And after you watch the movie, where does this rank amongst those other movies? You can let us know at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. But in case that's as lame as the Alien vs. Predator movies, you can also hit us up on Twitter at GeekcentricYT and on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. As always, we have plenty of awesome content to check out. The recent San Diego Comic-Con was a geeky delight with a ton of news, trailers, and a little bit of something for everyone. Check out our 2 episodes where we discuss all the details and share what we're most excited for coming out of the convention. Speaking of news and trailers and so much more, almost each and every week we come at you with This Week in Geek, where we discuss everything going on in the world of entertainment. Plus, we always have reviews coming your way. Check out our spoiler-free reviews for Netflix movies The Gray Man and Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as well as a review for the first season of the Apple TV Plus show, Surface. Until next time, hopefully this episode made you a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus just like me. Nate, Justin, thanks for joining me. And as we say,
Love ya.
get home safe, guys.
Peace.